Let's make my husband some beautiful ciabatta bread for work this week. I think this batch came out literally perfect, but let's check. You guys get to see first. Ugh. Look how beautiful. This recipe is perfect every time. This is a very long video. I'm gonna warn you guys, I've never made a 5-minute video before in my life. But here it is. And you can make ciabatta bread at home also. I start off with my active dry yeast. If you were using instant yeast, you don't have to do this 10 minutes ahead of time. I use active dry yeast. This is just what I prefer. So 10 minutes before you're about to make your bread, you need to bloom your yeast to make sure that it's active. To this, you're gonna need 385 grams of warm water, 2 teaspoons of sugar. You're gonna give this a good mix because the yeast feeds on the sugar to bloom. 2 teaspoons of your active dry yeast. Now you're gonna set this aside for about 5 to 10 minutes or until it gets nice, thick, frothy on top. Aside, clear your scale and weigh out 420 grams of all-purpose flour. You could use bread flour if you have it. I personally use the Kirkland all-purpose flour. That you have your flour weighed out, you're going to add it to a bowl. Now you're gonna add a tablespoon and a half of salt. I use fine pink Himalayan salt. You can use whatever salt you choose. Now that your yeast is all bloomed, add it to the flour. Get this together where all the flour is incorporated, and then we're gonna put a lid on it and let it rest for 20 minutes, and then we're gonna do 2 rounds of tuck and folds. I like to take a scraper, scrape down the sides. You don't wanna miss anything. Ciabatta is a higher hydration bread, so it is going to be very sticky. You are going to think that you need to add more flour to this. You do not, you just have to trust the process. Put a lid on this, let it sit for 20 minutes, and then we're gonna do our first round of tuck and folds. All right, it's been 20 minutes. Wet your hands. Then you're going to grab the dough, bring it up, fold it over. Grab your dough, bring it up, fold it over. You're turning about 45 degrees every time you do it. When you're done, your dough is gonna look like this. You feel the gluten develop a little bit more. Now we're going to cover this, let it sit for another 20 minutes, and then I'm actually gonna do coil folds. It's been 20 minutes, now I'm gonna do coils. You can do tuck and folds if you're not comfortable doing coils. All right, so you're gonna wet your hands. You're gonna take both hands. You're gonna scoop, bring up, fold it over. Turn, scoop, bring up, and fold it over. Wet your hands a little bit more, scoop, bring up, coil over. And you're gonna see, after the 4th one, this ball is so smooth. And look, the gluten has activated so much. Now that the coils are done, look how beautiful and smooth it is. We are going to cover this up and we're going to let this rise for about an hour and a half in a warm place in your house. If you don't have a warm place in your house and you have the bread proof setting on your stove, I would bread proof it for about an hour, but I would check on it. My house is about 74 degrees. You want it to be jiggly, kind of like a focaccia. We're not gonna pound this down. We're just gonna gently roll it out in the end. It's been an hour and a half. Our dough has more than doubled in size. It is very wet, very sticky. It is supposed to be like that. Take some flour and generously flour your surface. I mean it. Like, there is a reason why ciabatta has a ton of flour on it. It's because it's a wet dough. You're going to take a scraper or your fingers, I like to use a scraper, and you're going to dump it out onto the flour. I'm gonna try to get a weird angle so you can see that you are not gonna punch this down at all. You're gonna try your hardest not to press any air bubbles out of this at all. The key to ciabatta is to be as gentle as possible with the dough. You want to try your hardest not to let any of the air bubbles out. You're going to just grab, pull a little bit. Grab, pull a little bit. Grab a ton more flour, sprinkle it on top. Make sure both hands are floured very generously. Pick this up and turn it over. Then we're going to stretch it out a little bit, kind of as much as you can into a rectangle. More flour. I'm telling you, you're going to think you're putting so much flour on this, but I promise this is what makes the outside nice and crusty and the inside beautifully airy and light and fluffy. Take a nice sharp scraper or a knife and cut it and kind of wiggle it back and forth to separate it. This is going to make 6 cute ciabatta loaves. You're going to get yourself a sheet pan lined with parchment paper, and then you're going to take your bench scraper and you're going to quickly go underneath and gently lift it up and lay it onto the pan. Do that for everything. I'm going to cover this with a damp tea cloth. You're going to set this aside and let it rest for 45 minutes while you preheat your oven to 425 degrees. The clip of me putting it in the oven for some reason deleted. Now that the oven is preheated to 425 degrees, I'm going to put this in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. To create some steam, I just take a water bottle and spray the inside of the oven generously before I put the bread in, and it works perfect every time. Oh, look at it. It's perfect. Let this cool completely on a wired rack for about an hour before cutting into it.